Hey guys, this video you're about to check out is a very rough version of something I want to do that will be discussing the greatest horror movies of all time. In fact, if this one goes well, I'll eventually delete this video and redo it properly. But I wanted to give you that heads up before you saw the actual thing. So, with that being said, check out this video I did on the greatest horror movie of all time featuring The Thing, and understand this is a very, very rough version of it, and let me know what you think when you see it. Check it out, guys. Hello everyone, my name is Jerry. Welcome to Kill the Cast. Today we're going to talk about the GOAT, the greatest horror movie of all time. Now, everyone has a different opinion of what the greatest horror movie of all time is. And in this series, I'm going to go over different movies and explain why they could, in fact, be the greatest horror movie of all time. Now, where do you start at when you have so many movies that get ranked 10 out of 10 in the genre? Well, today we're starting with John Carpenter's The Thing. So, at the end of this video, let me know if you think I've convinced you that John Carpenter's The Thing is the greatest horror movie of all time. Let's get into this. On June 25th, 1982, John Carpenter's The Thing debuted in theaters with a budget of $15 million, and it grossed $19.6 million at the box office. That's not good. So why do we consider it GOAT? Why do we consider it the classic of all time? Well, first let's look at why it bombed at the box office. It had to go against E.T., the Extraterrestrial, by Steven Spielberg, that was released 2 weekends before. Now keep in mind, at the time, if you wanted to see a movie again after seeing it in the theaters the first time, you had to go back into the theaters to see it again before it left theaters, or else you were not going to see it for up to 2 to 3 years. Because it's not like today where movies come out, 6 months after it comes to the theaters. It would be years. So, not only that, but it was released at the same weekend as Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, a sci-fi classic. And keep in mind, The Thing is half horror, half sci-fi. Half of its audience went to go see Harrison Ford in Blade Runner. And Kurt Russell was not as big of a name as he is now. But Harrison Ford at the time was because of Star Wars. So if you're the general movie-going audience, you went to go see Harrison Ford. If you were taking your kids to the movies, you went to go see E.T. You didn't go see The Thing. And that's unfortunate because it makes me think, what would have happened if it would have came out on a better weekend, one where it didn't have to compete against such heavyweights. So, while it did bomb at the box office, I do want to bring up that it did gain cult status at home. It killed on the VHS market, the DVD market, and eventually the Blu-ray market. It got a whole second life, and I think that second life is definitely one of the reasons it can be the contender for the GOAT. Because despite bombing at the box office, it came back swinging in people's homes. And let's be honest, in your home is where it really counts. Now, let's talk about the monster. The Thing did not have an iconic look as much as it had an iconic vision of what it could be at any given moment. It could take over any kind of body and transmute it into whatever it wanted to, or become identical to that body. That's dangerous. That it could be anything. It's Invasion of the Body Snatchers level of paranoia coming from. Now, it didn't have an iconic look like the Alien, yet people know The Thing in its many, many forms. Everyone has their own different form. My favorite form is the dog form when it opens up like petals, almost like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. I absolutely love that. And that's why I think the monster in The Thing could be the GOAT. Alright, this is going to be a long one, so stay with me. It is made by someone who made a film that constantly gets credit as the birth of the slasher, the one who wrote the rules for the slasher, and is constantly ranked as a 10 out of 10 bona fide classic. And it's always in the same GOAT conversation. And that would be, of course, Halloween. But how often are we taken by the independently made film that we don't give credit to John when he actually has a bigger budget? He perfectly paints the picture of paranoia and self-sacrifice against an unknown evil. But people, even during the release, were comparing it to Halloween. Look at this quote from a review from Newsweek. David Anson wrote, astonishingly, Carpenter blows it. There's a big difference between shock effects and suspense. And in sacrificing everything at the altar of gore, Carpenter sabotages the drama. The thing is so single-mindedly determined to keep you awake that it almost puts you to sleep. Now, if that isn't someone who loved the minimalistic point of view from Halloween, letting them jade their point of view of the thing, I don't know what is. Sacrifice at the altar of gore? No suspense? What are you talking about? There's so much paranoia, so much suspense, and so much mystery. Yes, it's not as minimalistic as Halloween because he had a budget, but at the same time, it's not that overboard. I feel like it stays in a pretty, it's not... You could say that the gore effects and the monster effects are a little overabundant. But here's the thing. It's a monster movie. It's not a slasher movie. It's a monster movie. It's supposed to have those monster effects. It's supposed to have those gore. That's what we want in a monster. But at no point does it sacrifice the story or anything at the altar of gore. And if it did, you know what? I'm okay with that sacrifice. Because, one, I think you're wrong, and two, the special effects in it are amazing. In fact, this movie was nominated for 2 Saturn Awards in 1983 for Best Horror Movie and Best Special Effects. Nominated for the thing you're saying it sacrificed its whole movie-going experience for. That it had to keep people awake. How did it have to keep people awake? It doesn't have to force you to awake. You're awake this whole movie. One, because it's bright as shit because of the snow. There's no way you're sleeping through that. But two, it's a fantastic ride. I just don't understand how someone could go that route. Okay, we talked about how it became a cult status movie on the home video market. And over the past 2016, 2017, we had 2 definitive Blu-ray versions from 2 different companies come out. 2 of the best in the game for putting out horror movies with special features, with everything. Now keep in mind, we had it on Blu-ray before, but it was bare bones. It was just a movie. It didn't have any of the special features that the DVD had. And keep in mind, that DVD was packed. This movie was loaded with special features, which to me speaks to its presence as a GOAT contender. So take a look at the giant Shout Factory release. I mean, that thing had 2 slipcovers, a poster. They gave it the full run. They gave new special features to it, including all the old special features from the DVD. And one of the coolest special features they made for it was actually interviewing the guy who wrote the novelization of the movie, which is funny because the movie's based on a novel, and how he had nothing really to go off of when writing it. He didn't get enough to really flesh it out. Funny enough, he's also the guy who wrote the Alien novelization, and he went through the same thing there. So, a year or so later after the Scream Factory release, we get the Arrow release that was so big and so wanted, it crashed the Arrow website. Keep in mind, Arrow is not small time. They're pretty big for what they do. In fact, them and Scream are probably the 2 biggest in the horror cult movie stratosphere for releases. Now, not only did it get a limited release, but it also got a steel case that both sold out. And they even had to cancel orders because it was that desired. How often does that happen? I mean, keep in mind, a limited edition and a steel case, whatever you call it, metal pack, I don't care. Both released at the exact same time, both sold out, both shut down websites, both had people scrambling. Me personally, I had to go to Zavvi to do mine because I could not get the Arrow website to load. And guess what? I bought both. In fact, if you watch my Best of 2017 Blu-ray releases, I have the limited edition and the steelbook both in there. Because I had to have both because the movie is that good. So, how often do we have a release that comes out like that, that crashes a website, that sells out that fast? I mean, Arrow puts out limited editions all the time, but they don't sell out that fast. It was insane, and it just speaks to how many people bought it. And keep in mind, a lot of people were double dipping. I double dipped. I had the Scream Factory release. That's a 2K transfer. But the Arrow was a 4K transfer, so I had to have it. And how often do we hear of a director writing a sequel with a guarantee of the two main actors coming back, but knowing that because of what he's worth, it will not happen at Universal? So here was his idea. In 2004, John Carpenter said in an Empire Magazine interview that he has a story idea for The Thing 2, which centers around the two surviving characters, McCready and Childs. However, Carpenter felt that due to the higher price associated with his fee, Universal would not pursue the storyline. Carpenter indicated that he would be able to secure both Kurt Russell and Keith David for the sequel. In this story, Carpenter would explain the age difference of the actors between the two installments by having frostbite on their face due to the elements until they are rescued. The assumption of the sequel would rely on a radio signal being successfully transmitted by Windows before Blair destroyed the communications room. Thus, after the explosion of the base camp, the rescue team would arrive and find McCready and Childs still alive. Carpenter has not disclosed any other details, but that's how big this movie is. That we would want it. Hell, even if we started a Kickstarter to make it happen, it still wouldn't happen because we would not be able to make enough money to make it happen. There's a part of me that goes, man, I wish Carpenter would, maybe come down a little bit and make it happen, but at this point in his life, he really doesn't have to. Maybe one day he'll give his story idea or script to someone else and let them do it. But either way, I think it adds to the legacy of The Thing being the greatest movie of all time, the greatest horror movie of all time. So with that being said, I'm getting out of here. Thanks for watching. This is the first one. It's kind of experimental. I'll tighten up a bit as I go, fixing certain things, changing the way I do it, maybe even memorizing the scripts instead of reading it off my phone. But this was kind of an experiment to see how y'all feel about these videos. Would you want to see more of these? Do you want to see me tackle other movies and explain why they could be in the conversation for the greatest of all time? So let me know in the comments what movie you think is the greatest of all times. Are you willing to let John Carpenter's Thing be in that conversation? Is it good enough to be part of the greatest horror movies of all time? Are you willing to let it go there? Let me know in the comments, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time here on Kill the Cast.